Hello, everyone. Welcome here today. Today's our webinar. We already have several brilliant speakers here, and today's our topic is that about shifting the delivery and challenging about the AEC delivering in Australia. And then we have three very brilliant speakers here: Jacob, Sam, and Regan. And the backgrounds of these series of webinar is that 3DGS is relatively a very new thing here. And with the mobile scanning, we can get and capture a relatively large scale and complicated cases around the world. And 3DGS with spatial data now is changing the whole pipelines for not only the surveying, geospatial, but also architecture, engineering, and construction. And these days, we will have more cases, use cases, and the real business case here in the industry. And the speakers today will talk about their pipelines and experience about these fields. And then before the presentation starts, I would like to introduce them one by one. First is Sam. Please say something about yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Sam Jenkins from FREECITY Constructions in Sydney. Thanks, Mindy and Jacob, for the opportunity to attend today's webinar and speak. It's quite refreshing to be able to attend one of these in a normal time zone. I've had $1 for every webinar that I'd registered for and realised it was at 2 o'clock in the morning. So very much appreciate the opportunity. I've been in the construction industry for sort of 25 odd years, and I've been lucky enough to work around the world and seen a lot of different bits and pieces. But I'd say that I'm generally frustrated with the adoption of technology in the construction industry. We're a very slow adopter. We work in a very fragmented industry that we tend to do the same things over and over again. So really hoping that as technology advances and obviously 3D Gaussian splatting is a great part of that, we can look to improve what's really a fantastic industry.
Yeah. And thank you for this introduction, very brief one. And then the second would be the Regan. And please say something and say hello to the audience.
Yeah, thank you, Mindy. And likewise, just echoing what Sam had said, thanks very much for hosting this webinar and allowing us the opportunity to speak. And I'd also echo what Sam has mentioned in regards to the adoption of technology, particularly in this space. Construction-wise, but also too, everything leading up to that endpoint just as well beforehand, from design and surveying in some regard as well. So hopefully today's information that we can share with you is helpful. And looking forward to some of the questions just as well, and familiarising myself with a bit of the work around what Sam actually does in his realm as well too. So very exciting. Thanks very much.
Yeah, so hope that you can have a very colorful and insightful presentation today. And then is our owner Jacob, is also our very good partners in Australia. Hi, Jacob.
Hi. Welcome everyone to this webinar. After 18 months of build capabilities in Australia, we finally have our first Australian 3D Gaussian splatting webinar. I'm very excited and thrilled. Thank you, Sam and Regan, to contribute to this webinar and to be one of the speakers, to share your knowledge, share your experience, share your workflow. That's valuable. And for me, I'm the founder director of AECT.SOLUTIONS. We are the XGRIDS national distributor for Australia, and we are building a 3D end-to-end ecosystem here in Australia with the capabilities from your ground and aerial capture. Then we fuse that into a single 3D model for your workflow. Yeah, that's us. Looking forward to this webinar.
Yeah, AECT are very professional and with good services and technical backgrounds. They can support you very well in Australia and related areas. So let's move on to today's webinar. Over the past year, through this webinar series, we've shared workflows across surveying, construction, BIM, heritage, and infrastructure projects. One question keeps coming up: what actually changes on site when teams start using 3DGS and mobile scanning workflows? Not in theory, but in daily work. How much time is saved? What workflows change? What challenges appear? And what does the future look like? Today, we'll explore exactly that. You will see how full-scale 3DGS and point cloud workflows, or combine them, are being used across Australian construction and in the real estate or the property environments, from capturing data on site to sharing visual models with stakeholders across different project phases. And later on, we will have that presentation one by one. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment area. We will choose them and answer them during the live webinar. And then firstly, we would like to introduce Sam to have his presentation today.
Thank you, Mindy. So I've taken the perspective today. We're a builder developer, and so obviously in the development space, money goes out the door from day one for a long period of time until money starts coming back in. And so, as everybody would be aware, your ability to influence cost and manage risk is certainly best placed at the start of a project. So we've been using the 3D Gaussian splatting. Sorry, Mindy, do you mind going to the second slide? As in our for a lot of pre-planning type activities, and I've sort of focused on a couple of sort of what seem like innocuous scenarios, but I call them the 1%ers. And if you look at them sort of one by one, you know, they're quite innocuous by themselves, but when you combine them together, they add up, and you know, it potentially has effects on project cost and eventual returns. So the first one is just a comparison between some of the documentation we've been looking at for a project. There's actually a heritage listed convict wall at the back of one of our developments, and so that the drawing on the left has got some fairly vague language about a convict wall. There's some quite significant stabilisation works that need to be done to that wall, and obviously in the picture to the right, you can see the wall, you can see the building that needs to be demolished on the right hand side. And so one of the sort of beneficial use cases around this was actually our cost planner, who they don't generally get to site very often, or if they do, they're out taking a bunch of two-dimensional photos, and then it all gets lost. So I'd gone out and done a scan. Mindy, if you wouldn't mind just playing the file. And so what it gave was a proper view of what the convict wall was. It wasn't just a line on a drawing. It gave a bit of context of where it sits in relation. Yeah, just turn around if you don't mind. Yep, keep going around. So yeah, that was the wall on the left hand side. So he was able to sort of take a tour around the whole site, come to the back of the wall here, get some measurements on what it was. Look at what the works are, the preparatory works that we're going to do. I mean, there's obviously some heavy security bonds that we need to put in place to protect this wall. So it's really important that we understand the scope of it, that we price it in, and that we've got that appropriately priced and mitigated moving forward. So, like I said, it looks quite innocuous on a drawing, but this is the sort of thing that can add up very quickly, and the risk around any sort of heritage works is significant. So this was part of an overall scan that we did. Thanks, Mindy. If you wouldn't mind just going back to the slides. The second sort of example again is in a pre-planning phase. So when the slides come up, you'll see it. But we need to do some archaeological and heritage investigations inside one of our buildings. So the picture on the left, it's just a bunch of test pits that were sort of allocated as part of a desktop study by the consultant. So again, in 2D, not giving any spatial awareness of where it is or any geographic location, just a bunch of pits that need to be dug. So we went into the basement on the right hand side and did a quick scan, And Mindy, if you wouldn't mind bringing up that scan as well, please. We're able to share the scan with the consultants and also the demolition contractors who are carrying out the inspection works for us. What transpired, we're able to do a much more efficient location for the pits in the basement. The planning allowed us to work around. It's a live car park, so there's people coming and going. So we've actually been able to map out a plan in relation, spatially recognised sort of access into and out of the basement, and put in a proper plan that was sort of everybody knew what it looked like. We're able to price it. We're able to keep the basement operating, and it was just a much more frictionless process for to get the work done. So again, looks quite innocuous, but when you compare the richness of the view and the spatial awareness that we're able to capture with the 3D Gaussian splat versus the desktop study that was just some squares on a PDF, there's much more value in the capture. This was just done with a portal cam. It was, I think probably a 10-minute scan at most, and you can see the richness of what was able to be generated and then shared with the stakeholders just through a web browser. Really makes a difference. And all these I talk the incremental 1%ers of cost exposure. These are the sorts of things that for 15 minutes work and a bit of processing time, we're able to sort of capture the cost, capture the budget, and through it was a mitigation strategy as much as anything. So look, they're a couple of sort of pre-planning focused functions for 3D Gaussian splatting. This particular project is in the pre-planning phase, so it's been appropriate to do that. And it was just a couple of small examples of how we're using it. Mindy, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So one of the next slide just talks about sort of what surprised me, the good and the bad. So what worked and what was some of the operational insights. I think the stakeholder engagement piece has been sort of really useful. The ability to navigate around the model at speed through a web browser has been really useful and really powerful in the business. I was sitting in a meeting with the directors one day, and we're talking about a specific part of the site. And people were kind of trying to recall what they'd seen on site and all this sort of thing. And within 10 seconds, I brought up the link and manoeuvred to the location. We were able to talk to it in a bit of detail, and people got it was more of a valuable conversation. So I think the speed of navigation around the model and the richness of what's generated are really powerful for stakeholder engagement. The deployment of the hardware is so easy. I mean, from getting to site to getting your first capture going, it's a couple of minutes and you're up and away. So really quickly, really powerful, and a lot of value for time, money, and just the outdoor capture fidelity. So maintaining the detailed point cloud data across long sight lines. So we're a modular construction developer. So getting the richness of detail and planning useful for pre-planning, and will continue to be used through our workflows and when our modules are being delivered on site. A couple of operational insights, and I'm a fairly non-technical guy, so these might seem a bit basic, but the internal space is just the adequate lighting. Lighting makes a big difference, and you shouldn't underestimate that. You could see from the basement. Luckily, in there was lots of floodlights. We got good light, and as a result, you get really good scans and real richness of data. The outside scans, they were quite good, but cloudy days and sort of times of low light, you should be aware of that. Conducting multiple passes from different locations, that was a big one for me. The first couple of times I did the scan with the portal cam, I think I relied on it, or thinking that I'd captured too much. And after a couple of conversations with Jacob, just not being afraid to saturate the scan and really, capture long ways, up ways, and across the area makes a big difference, and it really it contributes to the quality of what you're producing. Strangely enough, a $50 monopole made a big difference. So the scan at this height versus a scan sort of a couple of meters high, and just the extra data that you're getting makes a big difference. So for a very minuscule investment, big benefits in the capture quality. Probably just looking at on the timescales for processing and post processing, ensuring that you've planned your scan, and then the amount of time that takes you to scan is proportional then to the amount of processing time post processing. So I got carried away one day, and I scanned pretty much to the end of my battery. But then the converse of that is that when I got home to process it, there was a long time to process. So probably just being efficient with how I was thinking about my scanning, making sure that I'm planning the paths that need to be scanned, and probably being a bit ruthless in what doesn't need to be scanned. I mean, I felt at times I was getting a bit carried away with trying to capture everything, and having this fantastic environment, when over time you want to look at what's the value you're getting from the scan and what's the story you're trying to tell, and the end result of that has an impact on your processing time. So couple of lessons learned for me there, and also a couple of things that just worked really well. Mindy, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. Just a quick slide on my experience with AECT. So Jacob's been a great partner for me along this journey, and really it came from an out of the blue reach out to him, which I think it might have been LinkedIn. He reacted straight away, and we've been working sort of closely ever since then. He's managed to stitch me up with investing in a whole lot of money and buying in XGRIDS hardware, but that's been great as well, and really I've appreciated the relationship and appreciated the advice. Jake has been available at all times of the day and night, and and very, very enthusiastic with not only solving the problem but making sure that I'm getting the right results out of the equipment. So that's been a really great experience for me, and for someone who's sort of probably non-technical compared to a lot of people, it's been a great backup for me. Mindy, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, please. So I just did a bit of a summary here on where I think the tech goes next over the next sort of the short term, the mid term, and the long term. I think webinars like this are really, really important. The amount of technology that's getting dumped on everybody every day, it's saturation. But I think picking stuff that is value add to the industry. I think that the XGRIDS platforms and the technology is really, really good, but there's an education piece around that. So making sure that that we're understanding what it is that we're doing, we're understanding what it is, the value that we're capturing, and just making sure that we're positioning the product for the industry that we're talking to. I mean, if you look at the 3D Gaussian splatting, there's a gazillion different use cases for it, and everybody's trying to do their piece. But I think as construction professionals, we need to be sort of quite focused on yes, the technology is great. How are we best going to use it to create value in our industry? Look, over the next 6 to 12 months, I think there's a massive adoption case for digital twins. The focus on digital twins around manufacturing and the factory environments. There's a really strong use case for that, and that's obviously where it's been most successful. I think us taking the next step to adopting it into the construction industry and making digital twins not just pictures that people can just walk around and see a nice view, but make them really data rich and value adding for helping solve some really difficult problems in the construction industry. I like the idea of a 3D model. I like the idea of a digital twin, and I like the idea of sort of changing the way that we're looking at solving problems in the construction industry, getting away from 2D drawings and 20 or 30 different revisions of stuff that's not coordinated, it's not collaborated. I think we've got to be establishing workflows that work, that they're collaborative, and there's a return on investment for everybody through the supply chain. It's really important for adoption. And look, I think that probably extends into the last piece, the big shift around 12 months. You know, it's 3D Gaussian splatting, digital twins being, you know, they shouldn't even be strange words. It should be our business as usual. We should be solving them for an industry that's got fragmented workflows, unstructured data and really siloed stakeholders. I think there's a massive opportunity for the industry and a massive opportunity for the software to really work together and become game changers. I mean, you know, potentially something quite controversial, but maybe we could get away from drawings in construction. Maybe we everything becomes a model, and you're modeling from day one. We get away from desktop reviews and they become, you know, desk model reviews potentially. You know, this is all down the track, but I think this is where we've got to get to, and we've got to use the opportunity that's in front of us to make the best use of the technology. But a key part of that is demonstrating value to people and allowing everybody to get a return on their investment through the pipeline. So that's my 2 cents on XGRIDS and 3D Gaussian splatting. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the insightful experience shared, and especially those like experience coming from the real construction sites. And yes, we got several questions here, and especially regarding the experience compared with the previous one. I think those mobile scanning really enhanced efficiency, and you got more details. And some of the questions coming from the comment area, firstly, is from Luke. Can you pick up coordinates on 3D GS model like mesh model?
Yes, that's probably a better question for Jacob, but my understanding is yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Actually, yes. We together with the XGRIDS system, we have an RTK, so that we can also have like GPS and the geo-reference information in, so that we can pick up some coordinates with the 3DGS models. And let's go to another one coming from Freya. Can you make an example of 3DGS facilitating decision making?
Look, I think the maybe the convict wall is as good a one as any. I mean, you know, there was fairly lax information that was available once. I mean, I had a view of what it was, but once the broader team had a view of what it actually looked like, what was entailed, and the works that were required to protect it, it was a much more informed decision-making process. And maybe decision-making is the wrong word, but it allowed us to de-risk the business by understanding the scope of the works. And I'd argue that that's probably that's as important as the decision that gets made. We're also using it for making some informed decision on logistics for our project. So we're a volumetric modular construction developer. So modules getting to site and the frequency and the delivery times for not only deliveries to site, but our ability to lift them off efficiently with the crane. So using the 3D Gaussian splat model to, again, inform the business and inform the stakeholders of what's the environment we're working in. You know, simple things like, you know, where the street curb is and where we've got overhanging trees nearby and how much can we cut trees back and all these sorts of little things. That they're all the 1%ers, but these are all the things that we need to be considering as construction professionals and making sure that we're de-risking the supply chain down the track. Yeah.
Yes, and we also have some cases like during the inspection period, and people may scan the construction site very often and to compare the difference between them. Some of them may also overlay the BIM model together with the construction site to see whether there is a difference and anything need to be modified during the construction period. Yeah, so that's also those with full details and much more richness of the construction information and the decision making can be possible. And let's move on to another one. I think this one is a very typical one. So I've encountered, and this one coming from Lucas. he has encountered an issue when sharing PDGS with clients, regardless of the platform used, including LCC as well. We also just shared that performance is often unusable on standard desktop machines without the dedicated graphic cards. This results in very low FPS, choppy navigation, or heavily blur low resolution rendering. How do you typically work around these limitations when delivering to the non-GPU users? It's like a question to ask, great, but Sam, do you have any experience to share?
Look, to be honest, I don't. I'm not surprised to see the question, but I haven't had that experience. It might be better focused to XGRIDS, but I guess the experience I've had sort of with my consultants and the teams here is that we haven't had an issue, but that could be a result of the types of people I'm dealing with as well. So we're obviously dealing with design consultants and people who are working with large files all the time. Potentially, they could already have the hardware that's dealing with that. I'm not sure, but I haven't personally hit that issue.
Yeah. So very grateful for these kind of answers, and for me, and I'm very grateful for all the tolerance coming from our partners and customers. And from the technical side, we are working very hard to tackle this kind of problem. So for 3DGS, and we can compare it to the mesh models that people may have it in 3D tiles with different chunks to load. So with different level of details and the streaming methods and rendering strategies, enhancement. And I think these kind of problems can be solved in very near future. And for us, we also released LCC2 recently. And this new format is designed for those environments with better FPS, and especially for those users don't have high performance computers, and they can also use a web-based application to load 3DGS in a large scale. So that's so for sure that's the problem that we want to tackle very quickly. Yes, and then let's move on to another one, and it's also coming from our friend Aiden. So would you say the ROI better than traditional pipelines regarding your scanning projects?
Look, I think that's still to be determined, Aidan, to be honest. I mean, one of the hardest things with adoption of anything in construction is demonstrating return on investment. And, when you're working in a construction industry where people are going in at sort of 5% margins and that sort of stuff, demonstrating the return on investment is hard. Could I quantify the return on investment at the moment? Probably not. But what I would say is that I'm certainly working in a team which is much better informed on the projects that we're working on, and we're able to have sort of more reasoned decision making around the project and what we're planning. I think the discussion around return on investment will be demonstrated over time, and that's a challenge that we've all got to demonstrate that and make sure it works for all our stakeholders.
Yeah. And yes, so I also, regarding my experience with stationary scanners as well as photogrammetry methods, and people need to move those equipment, scanning devices very often to do so, and move, stop, and those scanning periods can be shortened very much, and also the automatic processing procedure also enhance the efficiency as well. And the ROI, when we regarding the timing and also the cost, it will also have some very helpful insights from these pipelines, I think. Yeah, and I think this part, we've already answered several questions, and most of the questions will be answered in the last part of the order presentation finish. So thank you for Sam's presentation today, very insightful, and also we have different experience sharing and comparison to this time. And then let's introduce the second speaker, Regan, for his presentation today. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mindy. Thank you. Sam, that was really well done, actually. You made a lot of valuable points, which I'll probably just continue as well to touch on. So I'll share my presentation here, and I'll just get to discussing some of these items as well. But a lot of the points that Sam had brought up as well too about informing all the stakeholders relevant in a project. That's a big one, and we, like with our business, we feel very much the same way as well. We can inform more customers, with the information that we're providing them with the use of XGRIDS product and all the in-between data. One thing I never brought up when I presented to give my introduction was that I work for Survey My Block, and we also have a company in design just as well, and town planning. So originally I actually started off in the design and planning office, where we had started exploring the 3D world and scanning tools. And as a point I suppose I'd really bring up is, where I'm certainly not an expert, and a doctor is a good term. And I'm looking forward to some of the questions that come later, as some of these were really well informed, I suppose, with some of the issues that some people are having, and some workarounds which I might answer as well. So currently we have 3 businesses: Survey My Block, which focuses on surveying, mostly for residential customers. Design and planning, which also deals in design for residential customers just as well. And the town planning space, which is Go To Town Planning, involved to a degree with the capabilities of 3D scanning, but only a small percentage. So I'm basically the sales manager of Survey My Block at the moment. And in this presentation just as well, I'll hopefully kind of explain a little bit about our workflows and how they've dramatically increased our output. So typically speaking, the challenging thing, I suppose, was, one, all of the tools required in the surveying world are very expensive, and also servicing some of these projects just as well. It's very laboursome in the field, and what I'll speak to today is just about how we've kind of increased efficiencies within that pipeline, and basically almost combined a little bit of a workflow, which what this slide speaks to and attests to here. So one of the points I've made, and just looking back on basically output history from the sales, Survey My Block sales department area, we've essentially cut the field work in half by having one surveyor capture all of our detail and contour surveys specifically. Okay, so that's where we're really adopting the L2 Pro, and that's the product that we're using from XGRIDS, which is fantastic. So no longer are we kind of out on site shooting a whole bunch of points traditionally. We have the scanner that picks up quite literally millions and millions. So we're very well informed with what we return back with to the office, and all of those scans as well to a geo-reference, which answers one of the questions raised earlier regarding geo-reference meshes and data sets and things like that just as well. So very useful, and yeah, it's really important just as well too, pardon me, to supply this information to the teams that are going to be using it. So survey with detail and contour particularly, that workflow will eventually land on a designer's desk in some capacity. And that's where I think as well too, our business solves a bit of an issue with traditional measurements from designers, where they might use handheld lasers and things like that. Really, when we kind of think about it now that we have the L2 product, it's a little old school. So we're able to inform the relevant design teams working on residential projects or anything in that realm, to give them these data sets, as well as providing a survey just as well. So They've got more than what they've bargained for there, and we're currently developing our pipeline just as well to really kind of target the area, not only in survey in terms of efficiency delivery, but also too, where is this information going, which designers might be using it, and how can we better inform them and provide a service to them just as well. So that's very useful. Now, in this slide here, you can kind of see a little bit, how we prepare that data as well, and the pipeline involved. So I'll just bring up a video very quickly, and I'll just play that one, and I'll talk to it as well too. So once upon a time, like I said, old school, you can see the Trimble there. We still use it, but for not nearly as much time involved on site. You also saw the use of the pole there just as well, which Sam basically brought up and mentioned. Very useful, very handy. And what we're doing is we're obviously geo-referencing, these point clouds just as well with the surveyor helping and assisting on site, and taking this data back and help preparing to model it for the relevant parties, being designers or architects that might be using it. So you can see here how much more intuitive, just by the small video, things really are for those relevant services, again, being design and architecture. So, and overall, just as well too, the fly-through models that we kind of generate and capture, generating a scene using LCC, really, really informative. And I think this is what Sam had brought up as well too. All stakeholders, being able to, use the point cloud data to measure something is one thing, but actually interpreting that information and seeing visually what some of these items on a site might look like, and replacing, static imagery is very handy. And on the topic as well too, I'll direct this here with the question raised about, performance issues on some PCs. A workaround that we've actually developed for some of our clients is both by using the Lixil Studio to basically bring about some photos that the scanner would capture on site. But not only that as well too, there is a workaround with the LCC viewer. Using that on a mobile phone, I actually found is extremely optimized, and that is a small workaround that people can use if their PC isn't strong enough or equipped to handle that model. But I will say this as well too. I think we've been using the L2 Pro now for perhaps about a part of 6 months, and quite clearly you can see the amount of work that's put in from the XGRIDS team to continually develop their software and everything that they're doing on the back end. The patches and the updates are quite phenomenal, which is one of the reasons actually as to why we wanted to move with XGRIDS, because we could already see that even before we purchased the scanner just as well. So this shows a little bit of how that pipeline works, how we capture the data, what we're doing on site, how we're processing that, and how we're delivering that to all the relevant stakeholders just as well. So this as well too, this next slide will speak to a particular job that we had surveyed traditionally. It was a decision at the time when we purchased the technology. We were still developing our own workflows just as well. And this particular site had a little bit of a dispute with the neighbour. So we needed to capture some information, both of the subject lot and some information around the house beside it. It's a beautiful home. The area that you can see towards the rear of that house is a beautiful tennis court. Very luxury home. And the idea at the time was to undertake this traditionally. It ended up costing our surveyor 2 days roughly on site and repeated visits to return after they realised that they needed to capture some more information. However, what we ended up doing just as well is repeating this back straight with the scanner after the fact to quite evidently display that we could have captured it just the single time using the scanner if we had decided to do that for this particular project. So it's very handy in that sense just as well, because you're supplying a service, particularly with surveying, that in itself, it's a very old school way when I think about it now. We no longer have to return to site because all that information is captured. Where we can, of course, we'll try and deliver, a service where we can just capture information that was taken at the time, provided, of course, nothing has changed on site. And this is, it's happened at least a handful of times, saving us time to revisit that site and prioritize new projects that are coming through where people need, their detail and contour surveys to assist them with their design work ongoingly just as well. So very useful in that sense. And that's the information that we would never have had available, hence why we'd have to return to site in most cases. It really will kind of muddle the scheduling workflow. In this slide here as well too was asked basically what surprised me, good and bad. If anyone in this webinar at the moment has worked with surveyors, you will often find that they are very old school and adoption towards technology in some cases, which is a bit outside the norm, isn't always guaranteed. But in saying that, once we had the workflow developed, and that was developed quite quickly just after we had been testing with Jacob, we were able to really get the team on board quite as well, and they could see a lot of the benefits about that and the information that we can continually provide to the clients just as well. So again, really attesting to Sam's prior points, that information that we're able to share now is far more informed than a few dots on a page. So the surveyors quickly adapted to that, which was fantastic, and less of a hurdle than what we probably anticipated as a small business just as well. I guess as well too, this really kind of talks to Sam's point as well about the LCC modeling. So the model generation, not undercooking something is probably the key word there, or the key term, and just making sure that we're taking multiple loops when we're using the device, just to stitch those images together more appropriately to get a more clearer picture. And that's important to our workflow, but not only the stakeholders that we're engaging with, being designers, is in some instances the designers won't take measurements of a property now, where we are tasked with doing that with the scanner. So point cloud is, as I said, one thing. Being able to have that model clearly generated and for them to see all the X's and Y within that scene is really important for them just as well. So that was a big one, and that took a little bit of time in development, but with Jacob's help there as well too, we ended up getting phenomenal results and continue to get phenomenal results. So that took a little bit of ironing out, but we got there quite quickly just as well. Each site as well too is uniquely different. So in the image on the model that Sam had shared, there was quite a bit of vegetation there, and some of the properties just as well that we deal with. Some sites are great, and some sites unfortunately aren't. Being able to interpret that data in a point cloud is one thing. Seeing it visually is important just as well, which more informs us on how to plot that survey accurately and effectively just as well. So we had to get used to vegetation is probably the big one. And then lastly, I made the point there, avoiding passerbyers during a scan just as well, because we spoke on portability, kind of holding this device, walking around and traversing here and there. You do get plenty of people that will want to stop you and speak to you and say, oh, what's this? What's that? And they raise many questions. So that actually happens more frequently than not, I guess people are mostly used to surveyor tripods, but not so much a gadget that's spinning around as you walk it and hold it, in your hand. And there are plenty of people in shock. So that's actually a big one. It can get quite disrupting sometimes. Now, hit the last slide as well too, just really speaks to here about XGRIDS overall, and of course Jacob. Jacob's service, I'll speak on Jacob's service just as well first. Just phenomenal person to work with, phenomenal guy, makes working with XGRIDS and himself very, very easy. I used to think that I would work many hours, but after meeting Jacob, I don't think he ever stops. And he's the reason as to why we wanted to go with XGRIDS, was just his, I guess, really just his ability to come back to queries, to want to answer your questions. It was really rare, particularly in this space, as we had spoken to other people as well. And from the get-go, I knew that we would be working with XGRIDS in the future at the time, just because of Jacob's willingness to help. There was quite literally many weeks, perhaps in a row, where we were still learning and kind of getting our head around the product before we had even purchased it. And Jacob was, donating his time, to assisting us to understand, some of the intricacies about the technology. One of my notes there as well too says that Friday afternoon was never too late, because quite literally I'd be on my way out and I'd send an email or give Jacob a phone call, anticipating maybe a catch up the week following. But he's like, "Oh, I'll come to you now, no problems." Oh, okay, all right, no worries, Jacob. And all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, he'd be arriving in the office. So just exceptional. And with XGRIDS themselves as well too, just the continual development of the software that we see from our end, updates which make little quality of life improvements go a long way. It's just been fantastic in the last 6 months that we've had this device. And like I said, from what we could see updates wise, even before we purchased it, it's just a lot of work, and also to a testament as to why we wanted to work with the product, knowing that they're putting in the effort, in the back end to make everyone who uses that technology just so much more seamless. So, and I've also mentioned Aidan there as well too, who basically shared his time with us whilst in Australia on a quick whim. Meeting us for the very first time with Jacob was just unreal, and a relationship kind of blossomed there right away. So a fantastic team of individuals that I've had the opportunity to work with during this procurement of the device. It really kind of makes us feel in safe hands with what we have to deliver going forward as well. Asked about this last slide here, where we think things would be moving in future. The short-term space, at least for us, and the technology itself, it's going to gain a lot of momentum, and we feel very strongly about that because we do have relationships, in the survey world with designers and architects that we work with quite regularly. In a way, that traditional method that we used to, deliver our detail and contour surveys, that's one element. Now adopting, what we're providing, they're absolutely loving it, and they're essentially asking, us to measure sites for them and things like that internally in houses just as well, which kind of takes out a bit of the guesswork for some of those firms. But ultimately, I really think that we'll start to see more momentum in this space overall outside of our business, in this next 6 months, both in surveying, both in design just as well. I do know of other firms in the survey world that are also adopting this technology and moving along with it, because they are aware that it will make pipelines a lot more efficient just as well for them compared to the traditional methods. So labour's a big one in surveying world. Same too with design. In the midterm, what we what we feel just as well, a point on that in the next 6 to 12 months is, I guess, in this space alone, since we've come to realise that just before the procurement of the technology, even to now, we are understanding that, we're not the only firm doing what we do to provide some of these deliverables to our clients. And that's great. It's great that, it's a competitive market and more surveying firms are providing, this service along with the XGRIDS product just as well. And designers will reap, the benefits of that, as will too architects. The more they get their hands on this data, it'll be really important just to try and help with some of the headaches, particularly from later stages of development, just as well, with anything related to more of your town planning aspects, where you have a little bit more visual input from the data shared, to try and combat, some of the potential development applications and the work that town planners will go to just as well to use this data, to create their arguments to council. The big shift in the 12 months and beyond, this is something that I just think it's a no-brainer in mind at the moment, at least for the detail and contour world. I'm not so sure about some of the other surveying methods, but this one will be, a massive driver, the 3D world with digital twin and things like that. It will just be a lot more efficient for most surveying firms, I would have thought, to adopt this technology and perhaps in their best interest just to provide additional data beyond just a few, points on a PDF or a standard DWG. So more data in general. But yeah, that's it from me. Looking forward to welcoming any questions that might come along from this presentation as well. So thanks, Mindy.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, thank you for these sharing, and especially those like the time-consuming illustration, and which let us know exactly how it cost. Yes, and let's see what the questions coming from the comment here and our audience. This one coming from Bin Yang. Could you elaborate on how has using a shared data changed collaboration between surveyors, designer, and the clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So in regards to the data set that we particularly provide, we do have options for our customers to just take an external scan of the site whilst providing a detail and contour survey, but also to, what we might capture internally just as well. So that data is available to customers, designers and architects, depending on the service that they would like from us, but also to some of the data delivery that we manipulate. And when I say manipulate, I mean that we further enhance to provide to some of these customers. It just makes things a little bit more intuitive for them in 3D scope, rather than a traditional DWG that they might receive.
Yes, and I also have the same question. So during these procedural, we may also use like different kind of formats to change the collaboration, such as we use like PDF files or DWG, or sometimes walkthrough or fly-through videos can also showcase or show the differences. Yeah, so before that, 3DGS, I think 3DGS or GS or volume data sets is becoming new mainstream data sets in very near future. However, before that, people still get used to their own workflows with the PDF or the PPT slides. So that if we have more details and we can have those universal media assets can be transferred into different formats. So that's my point as well. And let's move on to the other question. This one from Jeremy, our old friend. And what's been the challenges when marketing 3DGS to your clients? And it's really a new thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It depends on the client, to be honest with you. It does really depend on the client in terms of, how their workflow, might present itself, what software they might use. We're still developing our pipeline for some other specific softwares that designers and architects might be using, which was quite surprising to us just as well. But biggest challenge is probably just giving them a taste, and first and foremost to provide them that data and kind of informing them what a 3D model or a 3D scan might entail with the relevant point cloud. So just giving them a first trial of that so they can fully understand and how to work with that more so within their software natively is probably the biggest challenge, informing them on how to use it. That's a challenge.
Yes, and from my side, and I am also the marketing guy for 3DGS, and I just keep or continue to make these kind of things can be well received by the community as well as the clients, and use different kinds of ways to showcase how 3DGS working for the real cases, and you have the real cases. And those real cases, you got the data sets be shown, and some of the clients may stunned by the data results compared with their previous experience. They can navigate freely in the 3D model. And I think 3D these days is not only about the model that you can see, it's also about interactive or immersive experience. So not only on the screen, but also put it into VR headsets or different kinds of formats that can display 3DGS is a very good way to marketing it. So to show it, to let the clients to experience it, and to make some interactive application based on that 3DGS data sets. For example, the annotation, and you can see exactly the annotation have noted in some specific areas. For example, the inspection case, and you can see the cracks on the bridge or the annotations added to those specific areas. That kind of things can really show the availability and the future possibilities of the 3DGS. And that's the way we try to persuade or marketing 3DGS. Yes, and I think the question here is down, and we will have more in the last part. And then thank you again for Regan's presentation, and we would like to introduce Jacob and give the mic to him in the next part. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jacob.
Hey guys. Welcome to this webinar. Thank you very much, Sam and Regan, for your introduction of your workflow, your data sets, your experience with this technology. Here's my slides. I'm Jacob, founder of AECT.SOLUTIONS. We help Australian organizations, businesses move from capture to decisions with ISO-aligned data deliveries, onshore processing, scan to BIM to SIM workflows. AECT is building an end-to-end 3D ecosystem for Australian businesses. We empower our clients, our solution partners with full-scale 3D reconstruction capabilities from micro, ground, aerial, with our onshore data processing and integration workflows. My background is ISO 9001, 14011, 45011 lead auditing and HSCQ management. I have over 12 years of experience working in construction and system integrations. So we build, deliver around everyday risks and gaps. The delivery is traceable, and the evidence is to support your decisions, not just for pretty models. So some of our key milestones shows the evolution of our ecosystem, which includes, the first 3D Gaussian splatting aerial ground fusion in Australia, and one of the 8 geospatial intelligence startups selected by the Queensland government, Advanced Queensland, Sunshine Coast University, and Sunshine Coast Council for Space2C Accelerator program in 2025. And we also deliver the scan to BIM workflow as well for Australian datasets and projects. In late 25, we complete the aerial ground 3D GS data fusion data integrated to ArcGIS Pro 3.6. And also, we have scaling as a national distributor for XGRIDS in 2026. Our vision is very simple, to build a bridge between the physical and digital world and ready for the world model. Practically speaking, it means the same day delivery and verification loop, auditable ready evidence pack, and also onshore data processing, which is very important for some of our clients. by using the RTK drones, SLAM LiDAR, photogrammetry, methodology scanning systems, and fused into one workflow. And we aim to deliver those results in hours, not days, not weeks. Come to our next slide. So here's our, the fact for today's 3D methods. You just can't get both accuracy and good visual at the same time. This is why the project is still suffering from the blind spots and the fragmented data. That's why we think the 3D GS, the Gaussian splatting, is a breakthrough, because it scales beautifully. No matter it's from the civil projects to indoor environment, even to the micro level precisions. One workflow, one capture, multiple deliverables for multiple industries, and nothing get lost in the translation. So our pipeline is designed for full scale, which means you use RTK drones for site contacts, use ground capture with the camera array, LiDAR SLAM LiDAR plus RTK. Then if you want some like high fidelity sections to be done, we can capture that with DSLR cameras, which is the key is repeatable capture that supports the verification. So here's some applications for the industries. You can use for AEC, utilities, virtual production, which is a new one, which I found that's very interesting. We did a scan for the cultural heritage buildings in Queensland, and also data is native supports for VR and AR applications. Of course, there's a new industries we try to develop in building the POC, which is real estate. So what's the difference from AEC from other distributor or hardware retailer? We try to deliver a whole ecosystem, from your capturing, from your processing, both local and cloud, to your viewing, publishing, model exporting, scan to BIM, scan to simulation, even integration to the ArcGIS, Autodesk, Unreal, Unity, NVIDIA Omniverse, and so on. The clients and our solution partner come to us for the workflow and outcome, not just for the hardware. So here's just demonstration from Regan's case. There's definitely a productive win for survey my blog and design planning. So what used to be like it takes hours, even days, a multiple person team to do, now can be done with a single person from single visit. And the same data sets can then be used by multiple teams at different project phases. So, our clients have also applied this workflow across AEC, forensics by the police, mining, utilities, and surveying. So there's also applications in the AEC captured by myself for the first Wombat pedestrian crossing project in Sunshine Coast, Australia. We have completed the site scan in just 10 minutes. After post-processing, multiple deliverables generated, so which including point clouds, panoramic photos, 3D Gaussian splatting model, which can provide the team with unified and accuracy geospatial data. This is significantly reduced the time for revisit, remeasurements, and manual documentation, which means like photos and paper forms. It saves around like 50% times for the project just on QA alone. So that's definitely a win for a project to be delivered. This is just overseas data sets contributed by XGRIDS. This shows Philip for Austria to use the L2 Pro to done a lot 400 detailed scan to BIM example, which means the data sets is accurate enough to support your BIM application. Also, there's another applications when you have the data sets, because we play around in your 3D data, so which means the native supports for the 3D assets like your BIM model. You can easily overlay that with your existing model or your progress scan, and then just overlay that, check the progress, even bring that to the further applications as well. Here's also a case study from us for the Gold Coast Highway job. So this showcase, the verification loop, a quick 10 minutes on-site scan, processing, publishing, assets extraction. The win is not how good the model looks like. It's uninterrupted live traffic with only traffic control. Every scan, all the scan, the whole 10 minutes was done just through walking on the pedestrian footpaths. And also the same data sets can be used remotely, verified by multiple stakeholders, multiple teams, no matter it's from the quality control, HSEQ, even the GIS team, and also surveyor team. So, in the end, we provide you a georeference evidence pack to support your sign off. Here's another, project example for a infrastructure job here in Sunshine Coast. We scanned the latest Mooloolaba seawall project for all the key milestones as a part of the QA package. As you can see, the first photo here is not even like a drone footage. It's just like a fly through within our 3D Gaussian splatting model. And with the right capturing techniques, you can even see through this mesh, pretty much just like doing an ultrasound for your mesh, and just leave that full 3D data sets for your QA. There's also some infrastructure capturing we have done over the years. There's also a very good case study. We're helping a oil and gas company building the capacities with 3D Gaussian splatting, together with our channel partners. Here's not the drone footage again. It's just like a aerial ground fusion data sets with Gaussian splatting format, which verifying that with our channel partners as well. As you can see, for the large scale 3D Gaussian splatting model, it can reconstruct perfectly with also high fidelity. For example, we fly the drone around 50-meter height, and then we can still identify those hail damage on the solar panels from the different angles of the Gaussian splatting model. Here's also a XGRIDS case study for the substation aerial ground fusion, which can also adopting to your everyday workflow with these data sets. Cultural heritage as well. We helped a university to complete a POC for utilizing both point clouds and 3D Gaussian splatting in the cultural heritage. And this building was built in 1888 in Warwick, regional Queensland. We have done the scan just within 20 minutes, processing the data overnight. The team get the data sets and results the second day. Here's the metrology scanning system we're also representing here in Australia. It'll be perfect for reverse engineering, for that sub-millimeter accuracy, if you're chasing the sub-millimeter accuracy for your objectives. And also another case study for the indoor, just screenshots for the Gaussian splats. As you can see, within that 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minute scan, what level of detail you'll be able to get in with your splats model. So how to work with us? There's different sections you can work with us. You can either purchase the device. We'll guide you through the whole journey. We can also provide you scanning service, and we also provide the hiring service for the equipment, and also we provide the training as well. And if you want to partner up, become the channel partner for XGRIDS products, we are more than welcome. We'll do the co-marketing, leads protection, and even give you the full cycle supports. So build up the confidence with you to distributing the technology here in Australia. So what's next? We have multiple things in Q2 26. First one is ticked, which is pretty good. We're going to go to Sydney build expression the whole full-scale 3D solutions. So if you happen in Sydney, come to visit us in booth C19. And also the whole journey going to be a roadshow. So if you in between Brisbane and Sydney, you want me to stop at somewhere, grab a coffee with me, want me to show you the solutions, show you the data sets, because sometimes data speak for everything. Just feel free to message me. We'll make an appointment. We'll make that happen. Further on that, we can have lots of keynote speakings. For one is HSEQ orientated, just demonstrating how the geospatial data can be used in HSEQ compliance. And also we're going to have a keynote speaking with Sunshine Coast Council for their construction tech event, which going to present this full scale end-to-end solution to the broader audience. And also to be expected, we're going to launch the 3D GS Masterclass in June. So we often get lots of questions through our social media, how you capture that, how you capture this. They're all going to be answered through the Masterclass happening in June. All right, let's build it together. So feel free to scan the QR code to connect with me. Yeah, if you happen to be in the Sydney build, just come to say hi. If you're in between the East Coast, let's meet up in person. That's me, Mindy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the introduction. And yes, and please follow up with all the events that will happen in Australia. And yes, AECT will bring you like the real data sets. And yes, I do agree with that. The data set speaks everything for you. Yes, and we also got questions from the comment area. And after this part, we will invite all the speakers back to the stage and have a very short panel and talking about some of the questions which are very challenging. And here is the question from Nicholas. Have you had much experience with merging multiple XGRIDS scans and join data to produce a 3D model?
Yeah, sure. We have, but for both, to be honest, we have experience in fusing the LiDAR data from, because L2 Pro supports a drone mount with DJI M300 and M350. Once you capture both data sets, make sure you got enough overlap, then you'll be able to fuse the data sets just within the Lexo Studio. For example, you do an internal scan with L2 Pro, then same time you do another scan for exterior facade or roofing. Once you've done all that, we just fuse the data sets through a single click in the Lexo Studio. And for the 3D Gaussian splatting, it's a little bit, it's got 3 steps involved, but it's manageable. You still do your oblique fly through with your RTK drones, then you do your ground scan, then just a further additional step with just the stitching data sets. You have to take some landing and takeoff footage with your drone as well to stitch the data sets. Again, that can be all done within Lexo Cybercolor just through a couple of clicks. So yes, we do have both experience, and both experience works very well.
Yeah, and for me, I would highly recommend L2 Pro with these scenarios. And the L2 Pro is much more robust and reliable in more complicated cases and more large-scale cases. Yes, and Jacob has all this experience, very professional. And then I think that I got a very long one. Yeah, it's for me, and I would like Jacob answer together with me, maybe. Yes, this one coming from David Johnson. I mean, I have 4 questions. The first is that, so on Facebook post for 3 days, is that there was going to be a world premiere of a new device by XGRIDS. Is this going to be a different or newer model to the protocam? The answer here is that it's still a secret. Yes, and if you are interested, and you can also, if you are in Australia, you can go to Jacob or the Sydney build, and you will see the new model. And second, coming from the real estate media background, is there an LCC viewer mode that we could deliver tools for where the options are simpler, more similar to the Matterport viewing experience, in particular, the need to lock viewing mode to walking and hide the options menu, point clouds. And very good one. Yes, I think these days we cannot avoid people compare XGRIDS solution together with Matterport. And still in real estate industry, even though some of the people may prefer a game-based navigation mode, but still for real estate industry, people still need that viewpoint or several point setting beforehand. And the answer is that we do have some functions related to real estate industry. For example, the floor plan or the viewpoint setting, and you can upgrade the LCC Studio to the premium version so that you can set the viewpoints in more intuitive way in real estate industry. And for more real estate related functions, and our solution engineer will take that into account. are, for example, the options manual, point clouds overlay, or more annotations adding to specific areas. So those kind of things some of them are on our roadmaps. And I think the third question cannot be low here, but I can read them. Can you provide any updates on public cloud processing access? I'm keen to pull the trigger to get involved, but not ready to purchase the AutoCAM for local processing just yet. Yeah, so I would also like to ask whether, Jake, there is more and more requirements from the markets that more and more people are requiring the cloud processing services.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a trend because not everyone got, high performance GPUs in their workshop or in the company. In terms of the easy to capture the data, especially with AutoCAM, because pretty much you can set up on site within a minute, then you perform your scan within 10 minutes. That's done. So what we need to think about is what's the next stage. How we can take the data further, how we can make the data processing journey a bit easier for the clients as well. I think that's definitely lots of demand on that one as well. And I believe the LCC Cloud gonna launch the pricing and how they're gonna structure it shortly. So we are very looking forward to it.
Yeah, so from my perspective, Ian, we are still trying to test the cloud processing services and try to make it a much more stable and a reasonable one with a reasonable price. Because at this moment, we think that with the cloud processing services, it contains the data transfer, data storage, as well as the processing. And it always requires high performance computing capability as well as the GPU. So I do understand in real estate industry, not all the people or the studios have high performance computers. And I do understand that cloud processing services can really enhance the efficiency as well as the workflow. And so I can promise that it will not be so late. And we will have these kind of, if you got any feedback, you can also let us know. And recently, we are carrying out user survey in not only in our social media but also in our Facebook user group. And you can also put that feedbacks to that user group, and we will collect all the requirements and needs and feedbacks from the markets. What kind of functions that you would like to add to that cloud processing services, and we will take all that into consideration and put that in roadmap as soon as possible. And the fourth question from David is that I've seen an issue on some scans where when you are walking between levels, the height doesn't stay consistent as you are climbing stairs, and you end up getting stuck in the floor as you proceed up the stairs. How can this issue be fixed before delivering to a client? Jacob, do you have such experience with those?
Yes, we do. I think that's just related to the SLAM. So we have to know the basic of SLAM, as mentioned to all my clients when they're doing the scan, because, for example, take the AutoCAM, for example, it doesn't have RTK to create trajectories. So you do make sure you have the small loops, small closed loops for your SLAM scanning that can help dramatically to improve the efficiency or successful rate of your 3D reconstruction. So if you take that, pre-planning your trajectory, your scanning path, I think that can be avoided like 80% of time. And also, I have noticed, especially for AutoCAM as well, if you scanning in transaction lighting environments, just make sure you stay a bit longer in those transaction corridors to allow the camera module to adopt into the new lighting environment. So that can also remove those blurry effects in your splats. So that can also optimize from the software point of view by enable the exposure optimization functions.
Yeah, so thank you for this illustration, and we will also try to make more tutorial contents that's to showcase how to tackle with those complicated and challenging environments. Especially some people may also be interested in some case about the Windows highly reflective surfaces or some very narrow channels or something like that. And if you're interested, you can also register for Jacob's masterclass. And I think they will cover more about this kind of challenging environments, how to scan and how to like make different coordinate points or control points for making a better delivery results. And yeah, so I think we've already finished the questions from David, and I would like to invite all the speakers back to the stage, and we have a very brief panel discussion here. So today, I must say very great thanks to all of you have these presentations and use cases sharing, also your personal experience and comparison between different pipelines. And I would also like to ask, what's the most challenging things for you during all this kind of thing to adopt the new tech and to persuade the clients? So maybe if you have any of the experience want to share, you can have it.
Would you like to go first, Sam?
Sure, no worries. Look, I can probably revisit one of the comments I made during my presentation, and this is not a personal experience, but I think one of the challenges that the construction industry faces is demonstrating value and demonstrating return on investment, and that's why there's such a slow uptake of technology. When you've got a fragmented industry with contractors who are going at 100 miles an hour, you've got builders who are doing this. You've got a strong industrial environment. You've got multiple stakeholders. It's a challenge, and I think that's a challenge that we've all got to lean into and try and demonstrate. We've got to understand the value, and then we've got to demonstrate it to our partners and our clients and to the supply chain, and really to get the buy-in moving forward. There's a group of us here who are passionate about it, and participating in these sorts of webinars is fantastic. The bigger challenge is out in the industry, and it's the guys working in the boots on the ground who we need to be able to convince the value to. I think that's a big challenge, and that's a comment about technology generally, not just around the XGRIDS platforms.
Yeah. So yeah, and for me, I always, for me, the challenge is not only coming about these kind of persuading things, but also to make people that believe that the new tech can be applied into the real case. So I always do this kind of thing to invite all the professionals to share their own pipelines and the real result and show them the case. How about Jacob? Do you have any challenges during these procedural?
Yes, always a challenge for people to adopt the new technology, especially when they don't have hands-on experience with those new tech. Just see some random post on Facebook or LinkedIn. So my way of approach is first just let more people understand, see it, feel it, experience it. Then my point of approach is to adopting those new technology, new data sets into the existing workflow. I think that's very important. No matter it's from the BIM model, no matter if you're working in the GIS, if you're working in CISM, or if you're working in the virtual production, we can show you the data sets is ready there now. It can be adopting into your workflow. It can be adopting into the Revit. It can be adopting into your CAD. So I think that's very important. Let people start to using it rather than just see the beautiful models online. And that's I think it's the most important thing.
Yeah, and for me, that's some of the misconception may taken from people that people think that the data set is built for, but it cannot be measured and without any accurate geometry. So I always try to persuade that what's the difference between the visual only source for that 3GS result and what's the difference really made with the LiDAR combined with the solution. And the question coming from here is that what is one misconception people often have before they using the technology? Did you meet some of the people who have some misconception about the 3D Gaussian splatting or the new tech?
I think that lots of people still think that the 3D Gaussian splatting just like a pretty visual. It's good, looking good, but they don't know, our solution is embedded the engineering geometry behind it. We got the LiDAR is correcting all the photogrammetry is taking on the go, and we're using LiDAR to generates this accuracy 3D Gaussian splats, so it can be used. It can be generated with, export as a mesh model, as a point cloud even. So I think, just to get those mess out of their heads, that's very important. We're gonna, to work harder on the marketing as well to let more people know you can actually use it. It's accurate.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, especially to put it into the construction or spatial measurement cases, and also to comparison the real tape measured result with the measurement functions within the LCC Studio. That's also a case or a way to prove that it's production ready. It's not only for visual, but still production ready for different kinds of workflows. And my next question would be, what do you think will be the most excitement development? And I think that all of you may cover some of the points here. So what do you think will be the most excitement development in this space over the next 1 year, 1 or 2? Because from my point of view, that I think that spatial data set is not only for people to visualize or communicate, but also regarding the spatial intelligent things, we are trying to make the robots or the AI can understand the space more. So maybe this would be a direction. And if you have like any other, the most excitement development you want to share, and you can put some highlights on that, please.
You want to go first, Sam?
Sure. What would be exciting for me would be to sit in some project review meetings and have almost a meeting on a model. So rather than reading through pages and pages of project review reports, I'd like to be sitting there looking at a model. I'd like to be sitting there being able to interrogate a program, being able to interrogate numbers, being able to interrogate design, all in the model in the meeting, and get away from a million transmittals of meeting minutes and RFIs and all of this sort of stuff. I think that would be a really cool space to be. I don't think it's that far away, and I think that there's some people who are probably doing that at the moment. But from an aspirational point of view, for someone like myself in my role, that'd be really cool. And I think it'd be a really good use of everybody's time, and a giant leap forward in making good use of some really fun and cool technology.
Yeah.
I think if I can just also add to that as well too, in our case, because we're providing this data to numerous stakeholders through project development, I think it's the opportunity that we give these other stakeholders to work with that data and actually adopt it within their workflows to what they feel is useful for them. And one of the points brought up from Sam, I think at the very start of this webinar, was that there are so many use cases, for this world in 3D, that the reality is as we spoke about here with some of the questions, you have people from real estate, people from construction, survey, design, wherever it may be. There's an application which we can apply it to, and how we adopt that information and how we use it. To your point again, Sam, in that meeting, interpreting the data for the best case scenario, it's something that we have available now, to make efficiencies in all of our processes, which is the big thing. At the end of the day, it comes back to the bottom dollar in some regards for businesses and things like that to operate. So very unique.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm a bit like thinking ahead. I think I would be very excited if we adding the timeline to the 3D Gaussian splatting, make it 4D. In that way, with the multiple capture you scan for similar sites, you can bring back the time. You can see the changes for the construction. You can capture those key milestones in your quality. You can identify the safety risks in advance. So that's going to be very valuable for everyday construction or AEC application, or even any application. So yeah, that really excites me.
Yeah, the same as me. So not only for that 3DGS overlay based on the timeline, but also to make some like spatial recognition, and so that we don't need to recognize them manually or by people. And the AI or the robot can help us to some extent to distinguish the cracks or whether the risks will happen based on some data sets or the database. And yeah, so in the future that maybe a robot can navigate and distinguish the dangers within a construction site, or they can really help the physics and understand the geometry. Yes, and I think these webinar is going to an end. We've already go through most of the use cases today and some of the questions here. And some may ask when will be the L3 in the market? And the question, the answer is here is that for sure we will have an L3, but I cannot tell any other word. Yes. Yes, and also, and we will bring a very quick one to the recent event, Sydney Build as well, 3 Dice, and then let's see that. Thank you again to all of our speakers today, Sam, Regan, and Jacob, for sharing your real world insights.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always
Thank you, Mindy, as well.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
and if you are interested in this kind of views, you can also go to them, Regan, Sam, as well as Jacob. And we will continue this series talking about 3DGS applied in different kinds of pipelines and application scenario. We will also be sharing the recording of this webinar after the session and post it into the YouTube. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.